Sexual confidence as a boundary. Narcissists can't cross is not about physical dominance, appearance, performance, or seductive power. It is about an internal state of embodied self-worth, emotional autonomy, and psychological stability that fundamentally disrupts narcissistic control dynamics. Narcissistic systems rely on extracting validation, emotional reaction, admiration, dependency, and uncertainty from others to regulate their nervous system. When someone carries genuine sexual confidence rooted in self-trust, boundaries, and emotional coherence, the narcissistic control loop loses its leverage. There is nothing to hook into, manipulate, inflate, destabilize, or feed upon. The boundary exists not as a rule or a confrontation, but as an energetic reality the narcissist cannot penetrate. True sexual confidence is not performative or attention-seeking. It is not loud, provocative, or externally oriented. It emerges from comfort in one's body, comfort with desire and refusal, comfort with vulnerability and autonomy, and clarity about personal boundaries. It does not seek approval to validate worth. It does not collapse under rejection. It does not require constant mirroring to feel secure. This form of confidence communicates psychological stability at a nervous system level. It signals that the individual is regulated internally rather than dependent on external feedback. Narcissistic personalities are highly sensitive to regulation dynamics, even when they do not consciously understand them. Their nervous system scans environments for emotional availability, reactivity, uncertainty, admiration, insecurity, and unmet needs. These signals indicate potential sources of supply. When someone is grounded, self-possessed, and emotionally contained, the nervous system of the narcissist receives very little regulatory stimulation. There is no volatility to exploit, no insecurity to amplify, no approval hunger to feed, and no emotional confusion to leverage. The interaction feels flat, unrewarding, and psychologically sterile from the narcissistic perspective. Sexual confidence rooted in internal stability communicates clear ownership of one's body, desire, pacing, consent, and emotional boundaries. There is no ambiguity about availability or worth. Attraction is present without dependency. Interest exists without desperation. Refusal exists without guilt or fear. Engagement exists without self-abandonment. This consistency deprives narcissistic systems of the push-pull dynamics they rely on to generate emotional intensity and control. The absence of emotional hooks prevents the formation of trauma bonds or validation loops. One of the reasons narcissists often attempt to destabilize sexually confident individuals is because their presence threatens the narcissist's unconscious regulation strategy. The narcissist may attempt subtle testing behaviors such as boundary probing, validation fishing, attention withdrawal, triangulation, or exaggerated charm to see if emotional leverage can be established. When these attempts fail to generate reaction, insecurity, overinvestment, or self-doubt, the narcissistic system experiences low reward activation. The nervous system receives minimal dopamine reinforcement. Interest often fades or shifts elsewhere because the interaction does not satisfy the addictive loop. Sexual confidence also disrupts the narcissist's ability to use sexuality as a control mechanism. In many narcissistic dynamics, sexual attention becomes currency. Withholding, granting, intensifying, or withdrawing attention can be used to regulate power and emotional dependency. A sexually confident individual does not outsource worth or safety to sexual attention. They can enjoy connection without attaching identity to it. They can disengage without internal collapse. They can maintain attraction without surrendering autonomy. This removes the leverage that narcissistic systems unconsciously depend on. Another critical dimension of this boundary is emotional congruence. Sexual confidence integrated with emotional clarity produces consistency between words, actions, boundaries, and self-perception. There is no internal split between desire and self-respect, attraction and self-protection, openness and discernment. Narcissistic manipulation often exploits internal contradictions within others, such as unmet validation needs, fear of abandonment, shame, or unresolved attachment wounds. When these vulnerabilities are integrated rather than suppressed, manipulation loses traction. This form of confidence also communicates high self-trust. The individual does not override intuition to preserve attention, connection, or validation. They listen to discomfort signals. They respect pacing. They disengage when alignment disappears. They do not chase emotional intensity as proof of connection. This prevents the escalation cycles narcissistic systems rely on to generate stimulation and dependency. Importantly, sexual confidence as a boundary is not about hostility, defensiveness, or superiority. It does not require confrontation or power struggles. It functions quietly through consistency and self-containment. The narcissist simply experiences the interaction as emotionally unrewarding and moves on or reduces investment. There is no dramatic conflict because the regulatory loop never activates strongly. For individuals who have previously experienced narcissistic dynamics, rebuilding sexual confidence often requires healing shame, reestablishing body trust, restoring boundaries, and recalibrating nervous system safety. Trauma bonds can distort perceptions of attraction, equating intensity with connection and volatility with chemistry. As regulation stabilizes, attraction patterns naturally shift toward emotionally available, grounded, and reciprocal partners. What once felt exciting may begin to feel destabilizing. What once felt boring may begin to feel safe and nourishing. Sexual confidence also changes how one navigates attention and desirability. Instead of using attraction to validate worth, it becomes a shared experience rather than a currency exchange. Attention can be appreciated without being consumed. Desire can be enjoyed without being weaponized. Boundaries can be maintained without fear of abandonment. This internal stability creates relational freedom. From a psychological perspective, narcissistic systems are unable to cross this boundary because it does not present the unresolved emotional openings they require to regulate themselves. They do not know how to relate in environments where emotional reciprocity, autonomy, and mutual respect replace dominance, extraction, and control. Their nervous system simply does not receive the stimulation it has been conditioned to seek. This dynamic often reveals itself subtly. The narcissist may initially feel intrigued by the confidence, but quickly experience frustration, boredom, or diminished interest when control, validation loops, or emotional dependency cannot be established. They may attempt to provoke insecurity or reaction and disengage when those attempts fail. The interaction never escalates into the familiar cycle because the entry point never opens. Sexual confidence as a boundary is therefore not about resisting narcissists directly, but about embodying a level of internal integration that naturally excludes exploitative dynamics. It protects without confrontation. It stabilizes without rigidity. It attracts healthy relational energy while repelling manipulation-driven interactions. At a deeper level, this principle reflects a broader psychological truth. When individuals regulate their worth internally, relational power imbalances dissolve. When self-trust replaces validation, manipulation loses relevance. When embodiment replaces performance, connection becomes mutual rather than transactional. Narcissistic systems cannot operate effectively in environments where emotional sovereignty is intact. The ultimate power of sexual confidence lies not in attracting or rejecting others, but in maintaining alignment with oneself. It anchors identity internally rather than externally. It honors desire without sacrificing dignity. It welcomes connection without abandoning autonomy. This internal coherence becomes an unspoken boundary that narcissistic systems cannot cross because there is simply nothing there for them to consume. In this way, sexual confidence becomes more than a relational advantage. It becomes a psychological shield, a nervous system stabilizer, and a gateway to relationships grounded in authenticity rather than extraction. Where narcissistic chasing seeks stimulation, sexual confidence offers presence. Where narcissistic control seeks leverage, sexual confidence offers autonomy. Where narcissistic identity seeks mirrors, sexual confidence offers self-recognition. And in that quiet stability, the cycle ends before it can begin.